Flawed. God's way is flawless, man's ways are flawed is the new book by Dr. James Bird that will be coming out real soon here. You do not want to miss this book. This book is going to tell, you know, we talk about how in this day and age, why is it that believers or people who call themselves Christians, marriages are having the same issues that non-believers or people who don't even go to church, you're having the same issues. Why is that? And with flawed, you'll be able to see that man's ways are flawed, but God's way is flawless. And this will walk you through the right way to communicate, right way to have marriage, of doing it God's way. God was the creator. He's the one that instituted it. And if you do it his way, you're going to have flawless success. But if you do it your own way, if you do it man's way, if you do it society's ways, you're going to find yourself in trouble. And that's what we're seeing a lot of today. So look for that coming out real soon. All right, next, on with the children. Now, one of the big things about that with children, you have to understand in your marriage is that in marriage only works in first place. If the children are in first place, the marriage will suffer. Okay? I know you love them little whippersnappers. They came out so beautiful and so pretty, and you just held them in your arm, and you saw them go through the first steps and the first words, you know, dada, and you know everything. You just love them, but you can never allow your children to be first place over your marriage. If you do, you're gonna fall into trouble. Let's say something like that. No. And I just read an article just recently about that where this was a true story. A woman, they'd been married about 3 years, and she remembered in premarital counseling a counselor telling her that you want to make sure you and your spouse stay in first place over anything. And she said, well, what about children? And he said, especially children. and she said she remembered in her mind saying, what kind of parent, especially what kind of mother would choose their husband over their children? You know, she said that's how she thought at the time. But 3 years later, her husband was coming in, and she was in the house, her mom was in the house, the new baby was in the house, and she heard her husband in the other room saying, where is she? And she got excited. And so he comes darting in the room, and she got excited, got up thinking that he was looking for her, and he walked right past her without even giving her the time of day and went to the baby girl. When he said, where is she? He was looking for the baby girl. And she said at that moment, her heart dropped. And she knew at that moment that it was the beginning of trouble. And she didn't say anything because she felt, what kind of woman would I be to say something about my husband about being a good dad? When I got so many friends who wish their husbands would be involved and wish they would be good dads. So I kind of felt, she said she kind of felt like, you know, selfish to say something to him about trying to be a good dad. But over time, he stayed involved with the children, and things started to wane in their relationship. Their sex life went down, communication went down because everything was about the children. They weren't having date nights and things like that anymore. Everything revolved the children. It got to the point they had 3 children within less than a 3-year span. So it was all about the children, and it got to the point to where after a while, she couldn't take it anymore. And she told him, she told him that she was leaving.
Her husband.
Yeah, she told her husband that she was leaving. And it blew him away. She said that she had been giving him hints every now and then, trying to talk to him about it, but he wasn't really getting it. Mm-hmm. And then she said she didn't really feel good about pressing the issue because, like she said, all her friends always talked about how wonderful of a dad he was. We wish our husbands was like your husband. Your husband is like the most amazing dad. And so every time she talked to her friends, that's all they said. So it made her feel like a heel to talk about him being a husband. But what she didn't realize, it wasn't about him being a dad that was the problem. It was about him being a husband. Yeah. You can be a great dad and be a lousy husband. Yeah.
And the problem is when you're married, you put them all in the same category. And when you do that, you're going to always be frustrated because Just because he's a good husband doesn't make him a good dad, and just because he's a good dad doesn't make him a good husband. And so you cannot, because he may be messing up with the kids somewhat, but he's a great husband to you, you can't make him be a bad husband for that. And so I think people just kind of take it and pour it all in the same pile.
Yeah, you can't do that. And so she said she was leaving, and that actually in this case was a good thing. Not a good thing because she said she was leaving,
Okay.
but what was good was that he got the picture, and he sincerely said, "Hey, I'm sorry. You know, was it that I need to do to turn this thing around and make this better?" And they had a really good talk about it, and they decided to make regular date nights. They decided, because they went in detail. I didn't go into detail a lot of things, but there was a lot of things about it that, you know, you don't realize you're doing. For example, the kids will come in, and she's the disciplinarian, so she's telling the children, don't interrupt us. We're talking right now, or wait till we get finished talking, teaching them manners. Don't interrupt us. And then he would say, "Oh, what is it? What do you want?" And so he carried it right to the children.
Yeah.
And so that's dividing and conquering. There goes the united front. You know, you always want to show a united front when it comes to children. You know, and so when you're raising your children, and here's the problem: most people don't talk about raising children before they have children.
No. They don't even know what each other's disciplinary actions are per person. You know what I'm saying? They just assume that they're going to be on the same page. But you're not on the same page when you come from two different worlds. And so you have to talk about these things. And, you know, some premarital counseling people go to, they do talk about, you know, kids and things like that. But it's even another whole situation when you're talking about a blended family.
Yes, yes.
You know what I'm saying? And so some people go in there with scars saying, the relationship I came out of was abusive, so you will not touch my kids. You will not say anything to them. You have just divided your household from day one, and you're going to have problems throughout the whole process, because once the kids know that you're not on the same team, they're going to help you destroy your family. And so you have to be careful about stuff like that.
Extremely careful. And so talking about how you raise your children in deep detail is very important, previous to getting married or previous to having children. One of the things I've read an article, and we won't have time to go into it in detail, but just in skimming a little bit, there was an American mom who learned something from the French mom, and this seemed to be a way of life, a way of parenting with the French mothers as opposed to the way we do things in America. And what they found out was that French moms, they were comfortable being the boss, okay, when it comes to their children. And what that meant was they didn't mind being, you know, disciplinarian to their children, okay. And early on, they taught them their kids that, so that they didn't have to spend a lot of time, you know, over and over again saying, "Don't do that, stop. Little Johnny's wearing me out all day long. I'm telling him to stop, and he ain't listening. He's just draining me. You know, a lot of times you see that with American mothers.
A lot.
Most
of the time.
Almost all the time. And so
and now it drifted into every community. You know what I'm saying? It used to be we go places and we see things of like that would never happen. And now you see your own family members and, you know, different people just doing it the same way.
It doesn't matter. Nowadays, whether you're black, white, Asian, whatever, you see it in all nationalities. Yeah. And so the French mom, they're comfortable even at an early age being the boss, setting the rules and guidelines with the children. They have a heavily restrictive in key areas and very permissive in others. And this was very interesting. What this mother found out was that the French mothers would allow their children free access to play on their own throughout the day in the home, or if they go to the park and things like that. They taught their children at home just to play by themselves and enjoy themselves and things like that. But at certain times around dinner certain if you go somewhere where it's time to be quiet, at certain places they taught them that this is the time to be quiet, and this is the time to be obedient. This is the time to use your inside voice, and they didn't play with it. They were serious with it. But then in the other stance, when they allowed them freedom, they wasn't on them about every little thing. As long as the kid was not in any danger, they let them do their own thing and have their fun. And it created a culture in the children that they could go somewhere, go to the park and be standing there talking to another mom, and the child is not going to come up grabbing all on them and just interrupt them, just needing their attention. Children, you create, you don't realize you create the neediness of a child, because every time they say, you picking them up. You know what I'm saying? Every time they say, you picking them up, and you create a neediness in them. And the French parents, they love on them and comfort them when they need it, but then they allow them the freedom and the space to do what they need to do, enjoy themselves. And so when they're out and about, they're not all drained and stressed. They can communicate, and the children can just play and have a good time. So that was pretty key thing that they learned. French parents insist that their children learn the art of waiting. This was another key thing. They said even at a young age, they train their children that if they come up, wait till I finish this conversation, or I'm doing something, wait till I finish this. They train their children at an early age. And how many times are you somewhere and you trying to talk to somebody and you see the kid just dart right in between you, or and you say you see the parent try to tell them wait, and the kid just gets louder and goes to pulling on them and yanking on them, and they haven't been trained to the discipline of waiting and being patient. To the point, now this is good, to the point of if they're in a store and they're grocery shopping and the child says, can I have some candy? And they say, okay, I'll buy you some candy. They buy the candy, they go through the checkout line, pay for the candy, then they tell the child, now you can't have any until snack time after dinner. So they bought the child candy, but the child can't even get a piece of it for another couple of hours.
Great.
So they're teaching restraint, they're teaching the art of waiting in everything that they do, patience in everything they do. I mean, it just baffles me, because I mean, you think about it, when it comes to little kids, you let them do what they want to do, especially grandkids. Oh my goodness, you let them do
that. You will rethink some things.
You let them do anything they want to. Hopefully. And then the French parents know that courtesy and firmness aren't mutually exclusive. And then the fifth thing was French parents place a high priority on training children to be independent. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you can see, and that's very big. And so when I saw that, and as I said, I didn't go into detail on everything because for the sake of time, but I just wanted to share a little bit of that to maybe to some new parents out there, maybe to some grandparents, to be helpful with your children in raising your grandchildren, because it's an end product we all want in our children. But they don't just luck up and turn out to be a certain way. I always tell people the best parenting advice I could ever give you is think about what do you want to produce at 20 years old, and then back up and start at 20 days old and put a plan in place to develop that product. If it's reading, you want them to be a good reader. If it's whatever it is.
I mean, just because they wasn't completely mentally stable for the rest of their lives, when you think about the Jacksons and the different people, their parents saw, well, not their parents, one of their parents saw what they wanted to achieve, and they did. You think about Venus and Serena, he saw what he wanted to achieve, he backed it up, and he did. And so it's possible for any parent to be able to get what they want.
Absolutely.
And so you just have to work together at it.